Hey everyone, thanks for listening in. My name is Nick Kalra, and this is the 2020 Project Podcast. The goal of this project is to share the stories and insights from young adults living with visual impairments. Focusing on those disorders not correctable by prescription lenses, this show aims to help explain what living with one of these conditions as a young person really looks like. I myself was diagnosed with Stargardt's disease, which is a form of juvenile macular degeneration, when I was 15, and the disease has had dramatic consequences on my life in the 7 years since. Wanting to learn more about other visual impairments and the stories of those managing them, I went online and dug into the research. Realizing there wasn't any easily digestible contemporary content addressing the topic, I decided to record this mini-series of podcast episodes to help share the day-to-day perspectives of young adults living with visual impairments. In today's episode, I myself will be getting interviewed by Evelyn Glassbrenner, a psychology student on the pre-physician assistant track at the University of Alabama. I will be discussing my experience living with Stargardt's disease, or fundus flavomaculatus, which is a rare genetically inherited eye disease caused by changes in a gene called ABCA4. This gene affects how your body uses vitamin A. The body uses vitamin A to make cells in the retina, after which the ABCA4 gene usually makes a protein to clean up the fatty material that's left over. In Stargardt's disease, this gene doesn't work, so the fatty material builds up in yellowish clumps on the macula. Over time, this fatty material kills the light-sensitive cells and destroys the central vision, with vision loss typically beginning in childhood and leveling out by adulthood. Vision loss from Stargardt's is not correctable by glasses, and there is no cure currently available. And I am a current fourth-year student at the University of Alabama studying finance, economics, and accounting. This conversation covers my diagnosis process, how I currently manage living with the condition, and much more. Please join me in welcoming Evelyn to the show as the host for this episode, and I hope you all enjoy the conversation.
All right, hello. Thank you so much for being here today, Nick. We're really excited to get the chance to talk to you and learn about your experience with Stargardt's. So just wanted to, get some background information on where you grew up, where you went to college. Tell me about that. What was that like?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally. Went to high school there, went all K through 12 there. And then came to the University of Alabama for college. I'm studying finance, economics, and accounting. Those are my three majors, with minors in math and value investing.
All right, awesome. Are you involved at college? Are you involved in any clubs? What about like a career? Like what?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm going to work in asset management full time in New York. So, I've done a couple internships, like investment internships in Barcelona, Birmingham, New York, and I'll be returning to New York full time to work in long short equity asset management as a research analyst. And then in here at school, I'm involved in like the investment group and some other professional networking groups, as well as the professional business fraternity, all with the goal of like the career in finance, all in support of that.
Wow, awesome. That's really exciting. So backing it up a little bit, how and when did you first realize something was awry or seemed different with your vision?
It was in eighth grade. I like started not being able to see the board, so I thought it was, just I needed glasses or something. So, um, I went to the doctor to get checked for glasses, um, and they did. There was a minor prescription, but I think the first doctor said, uh, and it was like a regular. They didn't suspect anything, but they said, hey, you're not able to see, like the bottom line. It's not perfect, even with the maximum correction that we can put on here. And even though the prescription wasn't that bad. So they referred me to a specialist. And then I got referred around a couple different times. So I probably went to like 4 or 5 doctors, across different counties and towns, until eventually, there was progressively more testing done. And eventually I was diagnosed with Stargardt's disease.
Okay, yeah. So What did they tell you about treatment options?
So eventually, when it was within the UPMC health system, which is a pretty big health network, particularly in Pittsburgh, where they're headquartered. So I was eventually in that system when I finally got diagnosed, and so they had a pretty big staff of like a genetic specialist team and all that. So they were able to tell me stuff, but basically what they told me is that there is no cure. So they told me about, there's different stem cell and gene therapy trials underway. There's research being done, but I think it was mostly just a scientific update rather than an actual actionable cure or therapy, because basically nothing existed at the time and nothing still exists. There's different things in clinical trials, stem cell and gene therapy, but outside of that, there's really nothing that you can do.
Were you interested in those at all, or did you consider those?
Well, they were clinical trials, so no. One, it'd be hard to get participation in them, just based on where they're located and how long you have to, participate in the study. It'd be like a lot more of a commitment than it would
For
be
sure.
just to get a cure once it was like done. And I myself didn't feel too comfortable participating in a clinical trial either.
Were there any parties or groups of people that really helped you adapt to school once you were diagnosed with Stargardt's?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed. Let's see. I first noticed there was something wrong with my vision in eighth grade. Just not being able to see the board in class and whatnot. And then I got diagnosed maybe right before freshman year. Between eighth and ninth grade. And then coming into ninth grade, I could already notice a significant deterioration in my vision. So at the end of eighth grade, where I could still like sit at a normal distance away from my laptop, like I could no longer do that. I noticed when I sat down and do homework, like first week of ninth grade. Now I had to like hunch over, like look closer to my laptop screen. So I could notice that like my vision was also already getting like a lot worse. And so in terms of like help, my parents like took the initiative to sit down with my school counselors, like my high school guidance counselor, later on throughout ninth grade. It wasn't immediate. So even though I was dealing with the vision issues like coming into ninth grade, for a couple months I just dealt with it, a couple weeks to a couple months, and then eventually my parents stepped in and said, hey, like, we know that you have this problem with your vision, so like we should talk to your high school counselors. And so that's, they set up a meeting, and then that was how I got called into the counselor. I had a meeting with the high school counselor. My parents and I were all in the office and discussing like what accommodations would be most helpful. And I think the counselor's office had some resources that was provided through the Office of Disability Services at the high school. So so they were able to, for standardized testing, just get a bigger booklet, like bigger text. And for classes, they informed my teachers. So anytime I would go to a new class for the rest of my 4 years in high school, like a teacher would have a little note on their thing, hey, this student has this issue, try to accommodate them by printing out the materials since they can't see the board, or giving them bigger font exams or whatever. I will note though that like none of those things really helped. So I still like bigger font doesn't really help, because the biggest problem you have is following along when the teacher is talking and following along with what's on the board. And that's really hard to recreate, particularly in classes like math classes or like physics, when there's a lot of like, working through a problem on the board. There's not really a printout for that. Versus like a slide deck with content for like a bio class, sure, they can print that out and I can sort of follow along. But particularly for the math classes, like it doesn't really help. And then the thing for me is like if I look at something close enough, then it doesn't really matter what the font size is. So bigger font doesn't really help either. So while it was great that they could accommodate that, it was pretty not helpful. And so, for exams, I still just used the normal booklet just because it was on my desk. I can just physically zoom in by looking at it closer. So,
So, would you be able to tell us just a little bit more about Stargardt's? besides being macular degeneration? Would you be able to tell
Yeah,
us
yeah.
more
I
about
guess I can
it?
say like more of like what it actually is rather than the scientific like explanation of it. And so basically what it is juvenile form of macular degeneration, which basically affects your retina. And so and it's genetic and it's caused by a certain gene that I can't really remember, but basically the leading theory is that it's an improper processing of vitamin A, but there's a couple different things, a couple different areas of study around it, but basically it damages your retina. But actually living with it, actually just like explaining my experience with it is basically it's a blind spot in the very center of my vision, which started at first, so I had perfect vision up until I was like 13, 14. And so it starts as a very tiny point in the very center of your vision of blindness, like literally a needle point, a pinpoint of blindness at the very center of your vision, and it expands over time. So more of your central vision becomes a blind spot. So basically, you're looking out of the corner of your eye or the sides of your eye, basically peripheral vision, all the time to see everything. And so if you think about what you use your central and your peripheral vision for, central vision is more useful for looking at objects further away, your fine print, or something with a lot of detail and clarity. You need to use your central vision. But peripheral vision can still fill in the gaps when you think about playing sports or something. So it really affects mostly in looking at things far away, reading, etc.
How did you deal with this diagnosis on like an emotional level, personally?
I mean, it was tough. Like the first year and a half, the toughest part was definitely being told I couldn't drive. Like I couldn't get a license because the thing is, you have perfect vision coming into this, so you never suspect anything is wrong. You're fully counting on getting your driver's license like a normal person, and so I getting diagnosed at like 14 and a half, like my main thing, what I was looking forward to was getting my learner's permit and being able to drive and get that level of independence, which never happened. So that was definitely the toughest part. Everything else I could sort of deal with. I was fortunate enough to, be able to continue doing well in academics and all that. And, you know, my day to day, I still had a good support network of family and friends. So, but that level of independence through not being able to drive was really tough.
For sure, yeah. What about any other challenges in your life as the vision loss progressed?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I came to college and was able to do fine in like classes and everything. I haven't registered with the Office of ODS here. I think I had a meeting with them freshman year, but similar to how it was in high school, I just figured I could manage just as well without really external help. So I've just been doing that, and it's been going well. So, and then in terms of career, been able to choose my career based on like, can I work from home eventually, maybe down the line? That informed my career. Am I doing detailed work with my hands? So like dentist was off the table, but luckily it aligned with my interests in finance too. So I was able to do that. And in terms of working there, just being able to like zoom in, use computers, like that all has still been fine. So and I will mention that this Stargardt's in most cases levels off in terms of the vision deterioration. So at about now, so I'm now 22, but for the past 3 or 4 years, my vision has been level. So it deteriorated heavily for a few years, but then it started leveling off, plateauing.
So, yeah, so you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how did you think about the future careers? You said like your Stargardt's really impacted your career choice.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, detailed work and all that, being able to, how much work I'd have to do, just really looking at like fine details and things. So maybe some like trades, I was definitely not out for, but I was interested in finance and it's worked out. You can zoom on the computer screen and all that. Yeah, the important thing is like commuting. So because you can't drive, you have to think about, is this something I can do from home, etc. And I've been in college, so I haven't really have to dealt with like a work commute, as I haven't really worked in college again, particularly due to this. But we'll see how that progresses.
Yeah. What about any misconceptions that you feel there are about the disease or just about vision loss in general?
I think it's like hard with particularly Stargardts for people to understand exactly how it affects your vision. So people don't understand that it's like, yeah, I can still play some sports like basketball. I'll be able to play, or something like that. It'll affect me more in like baseball, where you have to look at a smaller object from further away. There's just a lot of nuances in terms of what I can and can't see well, and how that affects my ability to do different things. If you see me reading a book, it's going to be super close to my face, but at the same time, you can see me playing ping pong and I'm doing okay. And so I think that confuses a lot of people, but nothing super material in terms of, me being held back or anything. Again, the biggest thing is not being able to drive. But luckily, I have a good support network of friends and family that can help me out there.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask about support system. So did you feel like you had that support system early on? Do you think it would have helped if you did?
Yeah, I think a more like collaborative approach. I mean, like more joint effort approach, like early on, maybe with like the hospital and like the specialist team, like the vision specialist, maybe at UPMC, at the hospital I was diagnosed at, maybe them talking with my like guidance counselor in terms of seeing better like accommodations. I don't know. It's like it's tough because there's only so much that's possible, but kind of going beyond just like bigger text on exams, like that wasn't super helpful, right? So maybe if they were able to, I don't know, see like some sort of live stream of like the smart board in front of the class. So for math classes, if that was able to help, if I could have some sort of live feed on my laptop or something. I know there's some softwares like that are available, but and I know maybe I should have been more self advocating for myself early on. But I think what's important to realize is like when someone's first been diagnosed, because I could advocate for myself to that level now. It's like, hey, this is what I need. Can we get this? But early on, one, you don't really know exactly what will be most helpful. So I think a little more hand holding, honestly, like a little more guidance, a little more initiative from the end of guidance counselors, etc., would have been more helpful. Again, just because when you've been first diagnosed, you really don't know exactly what might be most helpful. And secondly, you might be, not able to speak up for yourself. This could still be new to you. You're still afraid of like, oh, what will people think, and all that sort of stuff. So I think a little more initiative, them being a little more proactive would have been helpful. But that's, it ended up okay, so no big deal.
So moving on from high school to college, what was that like? How did you make the decision to go to college and where you went, and how did you think about living away from your family support?
Yeah, I went to University of Alabama, pretty far. It's like a 12-hour drive from where I was originally. But I came to school mostly because of scholarship, and that wasn't something that was offered really anywhere else out of any of the other schools I applied or got into. So that kind of really made the decision for me. And so although it was far, away from family support, that was a bit of a concern. But seeing how well I had done, through my academics in high school, and being really confident in my ability to just approach the new endeavor with whatever positive attitude it took to just do what I wanted to do and not be held back, really went a long way. And technology has really helped. So I knew that worst case, if I really need to go somewhere, if I'm late somewhere and I really need to get there, and none of my friends that I hopefully made at school could drive me there. I know I have Uber, right? Or I have DoorDash to get food, or I have Instacart to get groceries. So all of those delivery apps, technology has definitely helped a ton. Even when I'm going to a restaurant that has like the menu boards above the register, I can take a photo of the menu board on my phone, so I can zoom in, and not really take any extra time or get in anyone's way. So technology has been a huge help and definitely boosted confidence in terms of taking steps like going to college or even further, like going abroad to study, etc. I've been able to do all that.
So what support was offered on campus? Do you wish there was any additional type of support offered?
Yeah, there's an ODS office, but again, I haven't really looked into that because I've luckily been able to just work directly with my professors. So the first week of classes, I'll just let my professors know, particularly in a class where, a math class where a lot of writing is going on the board. I'll just, give them a heads up and let them know. So I haven't really worked through the ODS office, but rather directly with teachers. And every single teacher has been super, super understanding, and really goes out of their way to help. They'll send me the notes either before class or after class, or some even with COVID. Actually, it was really helpful because a lot of teachers were willing to record their lectures. And even once, a lot of the COVID stuff ended, coming out of the pandemic, a few teachers I've even had record the lectures just for me, since they had the Zoom software already ready to go and had that expertise on how to record, etc.
Right.
And they just send me the lectures. So teachers have been super helpful. Professors have been super helpful throughout college. So that's been great.
So, Nick, it's been super great to hear about your experience. We really appreciate you being here today. Just to wrap it up, we just wanted to ask about any micro level tips and tricks you used for managing your disability once you started living on your own, and any advice you would share for someone who might be recently diagnosed on how to cope with the diagnosis and then how to pursue your life goals.
Yeah, for sure. So I think in terms of micro tips, like technology, like what I just mentioned, right? All those apps, you can always take a photo of the menu or something and zoom in on your phone. You can always use like delivery apps too. So all of that has been helpful. Having a good support network, trying to have friends that understand your position, so might be more willing to, drive you places and things like that, when need be. That's super helpful. Again, return the favor in whatever way you can, obviously. But in terms of advice, for someone that might be recently diagnosed, my advice would be like, try to find, honestly, and I was looking for content like this, like a podcast that would have been super helpful. People just talking about their stories on YouTube or something like that would have been super helpful, but wasn't ready to find. So outside of that, I don't know. It's tough. But I try to find people that have gone through something similar. It's really hard to find those people, but I'm sure if you look hard enough, you could. And beyond that, just don't get down. Like, for Stargardts at least, you have the comfort that in most cases it does level off. So it's not like, you'll still have some vision at the end of it all. And just take it day by day. Just try to do what you can, and just stay, pursuing your goals, whatever academics or career that might be, and just do what you can, because there are ways to do it. I've been able to do academics and all that. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick, for sharing this all with us. For our listeners out there, we just wanted to summarize, based on all of Nick's responses, basically, if you're coping with this new diagnosis, basically through a positive attitude, using your resources and trying to move through this in the best way you can, is really going to help you long term, it seems. Any last words? Anything you want to share?
No, yeah. It was great.
All
Thanks for
right.
joining.
Thank you so much, Nick.